This week, the Supreme Court lifted a lower court's order restricting ICE from making immigration stops in Los Angeles. The justices ruled 6-3 rather, to allow ICE to again consider race, language, and location and stops in the case as the case continues. Dissenting justices, however, warned that the decision effectively sanctions racial profiling, putting Latino communities and even U.S. citizens at risk. The ruling is temporary, but signals how the court could ultimately reshape limits on immigration enforcement nationwide. It's a ruling which is well received by the border czar. Take a listen.
For instance, they say, well, ICE officers jumping out of vans in Home Depot. Were they there during the surveillance? Were they there when they were copping license plate numbers, who's dropping them off and where they're going? Were they there when they're pulling intelligence reports on some of these employers? Were they there when they're running NCIC and III on these people? Were they there when they're listening to wires? Were they there during any investigation? No, but they seen the culmination of this. They said, well, where's the reasonable suspicion? I trust the professionals of the Border Patrol and ICE, all very well trained, to make sure they establish reasonable suspicion to briefly detain and question somebody, and the Supreme Court agreed with me.
All right, here now with more reaction on this is Andrea Young. She's the Executive Director of the ACLU of Georgia. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, you just heard from the border czar. What's your reaction to what he had to say?
Well, I find it very disturbing. You know, it's one of the things viewers should know is that one of the plaintiffs in this case was an American citizen and was arrested by ICE because of the way that he looked, because of where he was, and this is racial profiling. And we have been fighting long and hard in this society that says your skin color should not mark you as a person for inferior treatment. You know, I grew up in a segregated Atlanta as a Black person as a child. You know, there were places I could not go because of my skin color. And it seems like the Supreme Court is saying that they are willing to tolerate that kind of treatment of American citizens based on their color. Perhaps they have an accent where they happen to work. And we find that, you know, we find that to frankly violate what we understood to be equal protection under the law and a ban on unreasonable searches and seizures under the Fourth Amendment.
As we mentioned earlier, this is temporary, but you think this is how it's going to be going forward?
Well, it's, you know, we certainly would hope not. I think one of the concerns also is that the court is issuing these kinds of decisions without explanation. This is on what they call their shadow or emergency docket. And so there's not really an explanation of how they justify this. But there does seem to be a pattern that, you know, when you look at decisions about considering race and college admissions and things like that, it seems like, well, you can consider race to hurt people, but not consider it when you're trying to level the playing field and to make sure that you're addressing, you know, the impact of past discrimination. So it seems very contradictory. Of course, Justice Sonia Sotomayor issued a very strong dissent and said that we shouldn't have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. And I also have to say that, you know, there are immigrants from other places. So what if they're looking at Irish immigrants? You know, what if Georgia has you know, a large population of Koreans? We just saw a raid at a factory where Korean nationals were actually helping to train American citizens to do high-tech jobs. And so this, you know, this assault is really very traumatic for a lot of communities who thought that America was a welcoming and inclusive and safe place for everyone, regardless of race, creed, or color.
What do you say to viewers who think that, now, well, this is just a Los Angeles issue, not here in Georgia? What do you say to them?
Oh, absolutely not true. We are seeing raids in Georgia. As I said, we just saw this in Korea. I mean, you know, in terms of Korean nationals helping to build the Hyundai facility down in, or the LG battery facility down outside of Savannah. So this is something that is happening widely. And as I said, you know, right now this litigation is about people who appear to be Latino. It can be other groups. We have a large population of of African immigrants in Georgia, immigrants from India. Any time that immigration enforcement apparently decides that they're going to look for people who are not in the country strictly lawfully, this kinds of thing can happen. And it's, as I said, it's deeply disturbing and certainly not what we thought the status of the law was with respect to everyone being able to enjoy equal protection under the law.
Andrea, we've got less than a minute here. I want you to ask this question for me. At the end of the day, do you really think, let's talk about what's really at stake here. Is this just about immigration, or is it about equal protection rights for all Americans?
Well, this is about all of us. This is about saying, you know, again, are we a welcoming country? Are we a multiracial, multicultural country? Does everyone deserve to be treated with dignity when they're within our borders? And treated with some level of respect. They're treating workers like, you know, they're dangerous criminals, you know, raiding workplaces and then throwing people face down on the ground and treating them like, you know, they're, as I said, hardened criminals when maybe they've overstayed their visa. Maybe they came to try to find money to send back to a sick relative in their country. So, you know, this is just very different from what we have seen and how we treat people in America. If you are in America, you are protected by the Constitution. That has been our belief.
All right.
And so in the context of that understanding, this is very disturbing.
Andrea Young, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight. Really appreciate it.